So who is your ideal franchise owner?
We have a really diverse background of owners. The things that we can coach most of the things that they need to learn.
Hmm.
A couple of characteristics that I think that we can't coach is ambition. For one, we want less owners with bigger businesses. So, we're not looking for Insulation Commandos of Southwest Dallas. We're looking for Insulation Commandos of Dallas. So we're looking for owners that want to come in and own an entire city and grow their business. So ambition's really big. Being able to network and get out in the community and build relationships. That's ultimately what's going to grow the business, is through those relationships that they establish locally. So just a people person, good at networking and ambitious that want to grow a big business. Everything else we can teach.
And are there what's kind of a common background of your franchisees?
We've got all walks of life. We've got some white collar executives. We've got a couple veterans. So our Dallas owner, he was a Russian linguist during the Cold War in the late 70s, early 80s, Army interpreter.
Wow.
He got into the solar industry, really well connected in the solar industry. So we've got a couple that are kind of in the industry. I mean, then we've got white collar executives. We've got, like Josh in Tampa. He was a head recruiter for a big finance company. We've got guys coming from software engineering. We've got owners. We've got an owner in Kansas City, Kaluki. She's an immigrant from Kenya. She moved to Chicago as a kid, grew up in the streets of Chicago, and then as soon as she turned 18, left Chicago, moved to Kansas City, got married, and did outbound telemarketing.
Okay.
That's what she was good at. And now she owns Insulation Commandos of Kansas City. So, I mean, we've got a pretty wide background,
Wow.
those little characteristics that we can't teach. If they've got those and they're coachable, the rest we can work with.
Okay. So, and what's your opinion on bolt-on businesses? Do you have franchise owners that have other home services businesses that bolted on in Insulation Commandos now?
It's something that it is on the radar. So we've got the HVAC business in LA. That's not a franchise, but that
Okay.
HVAC and insulation, they go hand in hand. It's the same customer. A big picture, in the future, we may end up franchising the HVAC company. And then bringing that in as a bolt-on business to go with Insulation Commandos.
Okay. And what is the investment opportunity cost?
About $250, just to keep the numbers simple. It's around $250,000 to get the business up and running. Franchise fee, startup package, all that, some working capital, $250.
Okay. And how big's the territory?
Our territory is a little bigger. They're 400,000 population per territory.
Oh, wow, that is
Whereas,
pretty big.
Yeah, most of our competitors, they're around 200 per territory. So like I said, we want bigger territories, bigger businesses.
Yeah. Well, Dustin, talking about competition, I mean, I know there's an enormous amount of competition in the insulation business, and even drilling down into franchising itself. How do you define your company in terms of finding your niche? Like, where do you fit into all this, and how do you separate yourself from the pack?
So our focus is retrofit insulation. We do new construction.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really go after it because the builders, they're going to hire the lowest bidder. Now, whoever's the lowest guy is getting the job. So margins are pretty slim. You got to do a lot of volume on the new construction side. Interest rates go up, they go down. The builders come and they go. The low hanging fruit for us is retrofit. So we're targeting existing homes, and we're helping those homeowners lower their energy consumption. So we call it the home performance industry.
Okay.
The niche part of the home improvement space. So anything that's going to make a house more efficient, that's what we do. So air sealing, going in, cleaning out the attics, air sealing everything, putting in new insulation. That's our main focus. Where it is pretty unsaturated. There's, even on the franchise side, most of these guys are doing spray foam, new construction.
Right.
So the very saturated competitive space. The retrofit side is pretty underserviced. We go into these markets and there's really there might be one or two other players in a market, that we compete with. And we're better at technology than they are. So we usually end up beating them. But one of the differentiators for us is Rockwool insulation. So I don't know if you ever heard of Rockwool.
No.
So Rockwool is, you've heard of fiberglass, cellulose.
Yes, sure.
You guys have a lot of cellulose in Florida, but there's a product called Rockwool insulation. So it's literally insulation that's made out of rock. They mine it, they heat it up, melt it, and then they spin it into wool. And so it's 100% fireproof. You can't burn it. It's very heavy, very dense. It's got a really high R value per inch. So a really good insulator. And then it rates really high on the, you probably have heard of the STC rating for sound, right? For like a podcast or something like that. So Rockwool rates in the 60s, in the high 60s. So it's good for soundproofing. And you can buy bats or rolls of Rockwool at like Lowe's or Home Depot, but we buy it from a plant. There's one plant in all of North America, and it's in South Texas. It's right outside of Waco, and we're buying blown in Rockwool. So it's loose, blown in. And so we can blow it through a 3-inch hose into an attic. We can drill 2-inch holes in the walls, and we can pack that wall cavity with Rockwool insulation. So like your podcast, Frank, we could, like your studio, we could come in and drill holes in your walls and pack the walls full of Rockwool and then patch the holes. And now we pretty much soundproof that room for you.
Wow.
So
Anthony, what do you think of that?
I love that. Let's do it.
Hey, we're in Tampa. Let us know.
Well, okay. Well, besides the podcast studio, though, I'm curious, like, all right, how do you find clients to create that need for them to know, like, I really do need insulation? Because somebody might not really be judging their energy, efficiency of their home. Saying, I think things are okay. My AC bill maybe has crept up a little higher and higher, almost to the point where you don't even realize it. So how do you create that?
Most of the time when we get a phone call, it's the homeowner is already frustrated because they woke up. It's usually when there's a season change. Like when the summer really kicks in down there and the AC turns on and it's not cool in the house, and the homeowner's like, man, my house is only 3 years old. Why is my HVAC unit not keeping up?
Right.
And so they call the HVAC company. They come out, like I was telling you before, they come out and test the unit. And they're like, well, your unit's working fine. Something's going on. You've got some air leaks in your house. And so you might want to call an insulation company. And so that's where we come in and do, a full audit, and we're looking for deficiencies in the home. We've got some tools that we use to kind of figure out where the air leaks are at in the home and what areas need insulated. You'd be surprised in Florida, they didn't start insulating homes till like the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh my God.
There was no buildings and codes on it. So these builders weren't even insulating the houses. Not most of the time we go in and there's no insulation, especially in Florida.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's kind of what an ideal customer, that calls in. They're frustrated because their AC's running 24/7. They can't figure out how to turn it off. Their electric bill's high.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.